Welcome back to the Garden State Outdoorsman podcast presented by Boondocks Hunting. I'm your host, Mike Nitre, and today we have Dieter Kochman. I said that correct?
That was good, yeah.
All right, perfect. From Face Off eBikes. Well, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
No, it is our pleasure, and I really wanted to for the longest time since we started this was to get somebody on about e-bikes because they've been the wave and the probably since COVID. Probably I would say at least I started noticing e-bikes around COVID and everything like that. So I think they are such an amazing and valuable tool. So I want to pick your brain on all these different things and how you got into it. But before we do that, give everyone out there a quick update on your backstory and everything like that.
Yeah, so I started, we'll call it a company. I never had really an intention on starting a company, but it started off as Stealth e-bikes, and then we rebranded this year just because we had gained so much traction to where there was some brand confusion with some other brands and with the website and stuff like that. So it was a good time this year before we grew a whole lot bigger to switch the name. So now we're Face Off e-bikes. My background with bikes is, I guess, growing up, that was our main mode of transportation. I had three brothers and a sister, and we didn't each have a vehicle, so we were on bikes. We were tearing them apart, working on them, and then my wife, after I met her, her father-in-law, or my father-in-law, her dad was a truck dealer, so I was helping him with bikes. So I understood the basics of mountain bikes, and then fat bikes came along, and I saw, much like a lot of people, where the use of an e-bike would be really great for hunting, where you wouldn't get sweaty. You could get to a lot of different places you couldn't go. So my original intention was just to basically build my own bike from a existing fat bike, where you can buy the motor, you can buy the battery, and then along that journey, I kind of got in contact with a couple different companies that were selling the motors and the batteries, and one thing led to another, and then I ended up getting more or less partially completed bikes where the battery was integrated into the frame and the motors were on the frame. And those are what I originally started selling, and it was for me and my brother and a couple buddies, and then kind of saw that there was an opportunity to where I didn't think anybody was really designing the bikes to do what hunters were asking them to do, where particularly with the derailleurs, where that's kind of the weakest spot on the bikes for a lot of guys, where if they're going through corn stubble or bean fields or tall grass, that they're tearing off the derailleur or clogging it up to where the bike won't function. So our company's kind of built on single speed bikes, where some the majority of them only have one gear, so they have a max speed, but the gearing's critical to where you want the bike to be able to climb pretty much any hill, where guys don't want to pedal, throttle only climbing ability. And then now, as we've gotten bigger, we've advanced to two different internally geared hubs, where the basics is like the derailleur's housed inside the rear wheel, and it shifts without having a derailleur. That rear hub shifts. So we have an automatic shifting hub where it shifts like a vehicle transmission. And then we have another hub that you switch on the handlebars, but all the shifting's done inside the hub. So you still have the single speed kind of bulletproof design, where we can actually use thicker chains that are on standard bikes with derailleurs, because the size chains we actually won't fit through a derailleur. So we're able to use stronger components and kind of identify all the weak spots on the bicycles when you put them in a hunting application, because bikes were really never designed to do what hunters are asking them to do. I mean, they weren't designed to drive through bean fields or 5 foot tall grass, or they're a mode of transportation on roads and trails.
Mhm.
And then the hunting application is kind of asking the bikes to do different things. And we felt we feel that we've kind of identified what hunters want out of the bike, and we're able to give them something that's going to meet their expectations.
Yeah, no, it seems like also it's a lot of wear and tear in the bike. So, you're like you said, you're taking it from what it's meant to do and absolutely just basically seems like starting to trash it. You are trying to get the most out of it. You're riding it through just, tall grass, mud, dirt, like, every aspect of, you look at what we do just walking through the woods or cornfield, bean fields, whatever they are, and now you're asking a bike to do it where originally you're right, this is not what they're made for. They're for the most part they're made to ride on, maybe gravel pat and paved pathways and stuff like that. Yes, you do have mountain bikes, but even those are, I mean, I remember we've ridden the hell out of mountain bikes up in Maine and everything like that, and just there's just certain things you can't go through. So it's asking a lot, and I can now understand where you know the way that you described it, what sets your bikes aside and from the rest. But really before we get in there, like when you're making it, and in the beginning, I swear I have so many people that come on there like, I really made it for myself and for my friends, and that's where it really started, before you even thought of the idea of selling it, what were some of the trial and errors, just for yourself and your family and friends?
So there's a lot of parts that are hidden on a lot of the imported bicycle or the less expensive bicycles. So immediately we realized that almost every e-bike that's getting imported, it has a lower end headset, and the headset's the bearing group that attaches the front fork to the frame and handlebars. So even if you go online, you're going to constantly see where people are talking about failing headsets and different problems with the front end of the bike. So we're probably one of the only company that uses like higher end performance headsets, the type of headsets that are used on like competitive downhill mountain biking. So we use Wolf Tooth Components, which is an American made company. Their headset's one of the best headsets on the market. There's a couple companies, there's like Wolf Tooth, Cane Creek, but branded headsets where if you look at the front of the bike and where the handlebars attach to the frame, there should be some type of logo or a name on there. If there's nothing there, then it's a lower end headset. And that's the first trial we had. So I think the first bike I sold, and originally the bikes were kind of like Frankenstein bikes where I'd get, a frame from one company, a motor, a battery, and then, you know, change some of the parts that I knew were problematic. And, I think that first headset, the it failed within the first 3 weeks. And it was like, well, this is a major problem. So I started looking at it, and it's just a design that's not intended to go through what people are putting the bikes through. I mean, when you're going down technical terrain or hitting rocks or hitting logs and stuff like that, it's hard on the front end of the bike. So that was a part that immediately we realized needed to be replaced. And originally we did have bikes with derailleurs just because nobody had really done the single speed thing very successfully in the hunting industry. And a lot of it was because the parts really didn't exist, where you need a combination of the right size front chain ring with the right size rear cog to give you climbing ability, and then, a decent top end speed. So the parts didn't exist. So we started fabricating our own rear cogs to where we could get the bikes geared properly so that they'd climb pretty much anything. They'd climb similar to like a 9-speed derailleur. And starting out, kind of our baseline bike that I looked at when I was designing bikes was the Baku Mule was always well respected in climbing. So I looked at the mule, I looked at the gearing. I said, well, our bikes have to be at least that good or better. So that's kind of where our bikes are at, where we don't sell any bikes that won't perform in hills or throttle only climb. Our least expensive bike will perform extremely similar to our most expensive bike, and then as the price goes up, what you get is usually a larger battery where there's a lot of cost in the battery. You're going to get better brakes and you're going to get a better front suspension and maybe some other small features. But if you
Mhm.
performance wise, if you went to any hill, our least expensive bike is going to climb the hill as well as our most expensive bike. It's just going to be some of those other components are going to be a little bit better. So we kind of have our thought process is we want to have a minimum performance standard where if anybody buys any of our bikes, it's going to perform to that level. We didn't want to kind of drop down, and it'd be nice to sell bikes in that lower price range, but
Yeah.
I know they're not going to last, they're not going to perform. And we want anybody who buys any of our bikes to know that it's going to accomplish everything they need to do, and it's not going to be a situation where you see online where a guy buys a bike and it might be even a decent name bike, but he
Mhm.
just buys the wrong bike to perform the way he wants it to perform, and he's disappointed. And we just made the decision we're gonna sell bikes kind of in that mid to top price range, and that gives us the ability to give people exactly what they need to perform in hunting situations. And then that also gives us the ability to kind of stay on the forefront of technology, where the advancements in technology are going to be in the higher price range, and that may
Of
eventually trickle down. It may not. I'm not sure. But even going to this year, I think there's only one other company that has access to the Bafang 5-speed automatic geared hub. So we're able to stay in front of the trends and then hopefully evolve and keep giving people exactly what they want and staying ahead of the curve. Where you talked a lot about the COVID boom, where there's a huge boom in bicycles, and a lot of those are leftovers where you're seeing a lot of cheap, particularly hub drive bikes that they're basically rebranding and just trying to unload on Amazon or whatever. And those companies are here today, gone tomorrow.
Yeah.
You're not going to get any type of warranty or service because there's a bunch of there's only a handful of companies in the industry, and then there's just offshoots. And so that's where you're seeing these new companies constantly springing up. They'll unload a bunch of bikes. They might have camouflage paint. They're trying to market them to hunters, but just slapping paint on something doesn't make it a hunting e-bike. We take that wording seriously to where,
Yeah.
our bikes need to have something unique and special about them for them to be a hunting specific bike. And for us, it's having no derailleur, looking at the bikes in ways that other companies aren't, where we sell bikes with narrower handlebars where you can drive through cornfields, corn rows, tighter terrain with trees and stuff like that. We're putting big batteries on our bikes, and we're just doing a lot of little things where the trailer attachment points are integrated into the frames so that you don't have to attach it to your axle and risk it breaking your axle, or you don't have to
Mhm.
try to attach a trailer to a flimsy mountain bike type rack. So we're reinforcing the areas that need to be reinforced and trying to give our customers all the features they want so that they can do what the bike needs to do, because the bike needs to perform from whatever date to whatever date, September to the end of December. So it's a short time frame. Our guys aren't putting thousands of miles on bikes, but the bike better work when it needs to
Mhm.
work, because a guy might only have a week to 2 week vacation, and if his bike goes down, I mean, I don't want that to happen, which is why
Of
we're
course.
trying to
Yeah.
sell bulletproof stuff that just isn't going to break and is going to do what guys want it to do.
No, yeah, definitely, and I think that's always the most important aspect of it. And I was taught at a young age, like, you never really want to go off brand. If you're gonna spend the money, you at least you're spending the money on a good quality, that it's not going to fail you when the time comes, and that's why usually like people ask like, oh well, why did you spend the extra money on this? Well, because you know what, I want to buy the best of the best, because I don't want it to fail me when I need it to count on it the most, um, and I believe in that from kind of like everyday life, from the vehicle that I drive to my hunting equipment, to my bows, to my broadheads, to clothing, everything like that. It's not because I want to wear the best stuff in the world, or be this brand type of person, but it's more the fact of, at least I know when push comes to shove, it's going to get the job done, or it's going to help me get the job done. And, even if something does fail, usually when you spend more, when you got that higher quality or whatever, in that case is, you're usually going to get like, hey, you know what? Okay, where you can send it back. Let's see what the problem is. Things like that. And I think that's very important when you're usually buying cheaper made stuff. I mean, you're not gonna get that. You said directly. Some of these companies from the COVID boom and everything like that, there is no warranty with your bike, and things like that. So I think that's extremely important. Now, something I really want to, that has always piqued my curiosity, and I've had debates with buddies and everything like that. What's your pulling weight like? So say you go out for a hunt and you shoot a big buck or a bear or something like that. What can people expect from your e-bikes with pulling weight?
So I mean, they're designed to handle, as much as we can. There's always going to be a weak spot
Mm-hmm.
on the bike, just because it's not a pickup truck, it's not a four-wheeler.
Yeah.
Last year I shot a buck that dressed 207, and I hauled it on the bike. I had one customer who called me, and he had shot 2 does, and he had his kid on the trailer, so he said he was hauling like over 550 pounds. So
Jeez.
they're designed, but anytime you start overloading with weight, you're going to risk damaging something on the bike, whether it's the rear hub, the racks for the we've really reinforced the racks where that's less of an issue. So we've identified those points. I don't think there's many bikes that are going to handle more weight than ours do, just because we've looked at the problem points and tried to do it. But it's like if you have an F-150 pickup truck, you can't expect it to do what an F-350 could pull. They're both
No, no.
trucks, and any bike is going to have the same weak spots. With the rear hub ends up being something that can happen, and we kind of talk it, a lot of it's dependent on how you ride the bike. So what happens in the rear hub is there's pawls inside the rear hub, and that's that little clicking noise when the wheels in freewheel. And then when you're pedaling, those pawls engage the hub, and that's what spins the wheel. So if you're hauling a bunch of weight and those pawls are fully engaged, you're probably not going to have any problems. But if you're going on and off throttle where those pawls are disengaging and engaging, and you catch them kind of halfway, that's where they're at their weakest. So I always recommend, if guys are going to be pulling a lot of weight, as long as, like, our bikes are obviously designed throttle only application, but as long as your feet are moving and that rear cog spinning, those pawls are engaged. So you can be on the throttle, but even if you're just ghost pedaling, that's going to keep those pawls engaged to where they're not going to go in and out of engagement. And that's a part that can break on the bikes. And
Okay.
we've identified with that some of our hub designs where we're making them where they're going to handle more torque, and different designs where we're using some star ratchet designs. And I think we're one of very few companies that are actually selling that part, just because we know that that's a stronger part, and it's actually makes less noise than the louder clicking on some of the pawls. So guys can normally, they should be able to expect to haul a deer, but the more and more you do that, how you ride the bike, what type of
Yeah.
terrain you're going on, and worst case scenario, you break apart, and that's kind of where I think we pride ourselves on customer service. Where if you break a hub, we're gonna get one in the mail to you as fast as we can. It's not gonna be where you're waiting weeks or months, which is some of
Mhm.
the horror stories we hear with some other companies. So we're gonna get you parts that you need.
Yeah.
It's lifetime customer service where, if you break something down the road on the bike, we're gonna get you the parts. And a lot of times with customer service, especially with e-bikes, people just they want you to point them in the right direction where they just have no idea what they need. Like if they need a part, you know, and they call me, whether I have the part or I can point them in the right direction, because most of the bikes just bike parts where you can get the stuff on Amazon or your local bike shop or wherever, compared to you hear stories people need like a front fork and it takes them over a year to get it. And, from our
Jeez.
standpoint, that's ridiculous because the problem is if you buy a bike from, one of those big name companies, they're importing completed bicycles. They're not building bikes. So people assume that they have piles of parts laying around, and they don't, because they're just importing bicycles and kind of reselling them. Whereas
Mhm.
like we actually have those parts because we're tearing bikes apart. I think our most popular bike right now is the Switchback, and off that frame configuration, I can build it 4 different ways. I can build it with a chain single speed. I can build it with a belt. I can build it with 5-speed, the Fang hub. I can build it with the roll-off hub. So I'm actually getting bikes, building them, and then shipping them off to people, compared to companies that are just drop shipping bikes and never really have their hands on the bikes. And,
Mhm.
with that comes, I have the parts laying around. I have the knowledge of, what can go wrong and what needs to get fixed on the bike. So, you know, we feel you get a lot by buying a bike through us, just with customer service and assistance if you need parts or knowledge setting up the bike or doing any type of modification. So that's kind of been our goal as a company, is to, we obviously respect the fact that people are spending a considerable amount of money buying a product from us, and we're gonna stand by it and help them any way we can.
Yeah. No, definitely. Because I think that's part of the. I've been wanting one for since I think I saw the first one at the Great American Outdoor Show. And it has always been this. It's like, oh, like I really want to get it, but then you know what? It is, there's some money that's going to be involved, but I look at it as a it's a long term investment. It's something that um is gonna benefit you. Obviously, yes, you got to spend the money, but you're looking for that, especially with a company like yours. You're saying, you can, the customer service is very excellent. I always look at companies like that, like, well, okay, what's their customer service like? I don't want to spend the money on something where it's like you said, oh well, I have to wait a year. Like, come on, we don't have that amount of time. You're gonna do the best you can, get the whatever they need out to them as quickly as possible. This is also something that is, you build, and it's, first of all, you build, it's American made and everything like that, so it's great. You're going to get great customer service, but I think that's always been part of the issue, and I think why a lot of people don't go to is because they're not 100% sure. Is it worth it? What happens if something goes wrong, when something breaks? This right here, you're able to, everyone listening, this is the man behind it all. So you're hearing this now, and that's a big part, another reason why I wanted to get you on and everything, like, just so more people can find out what really they're going to be getting into buying one of your bikes.
And
you
I
know
don't want to misrepresent that it's entirely American made. Like, I'm 100% honest about everything. Like, guys call me about a bike and my bike might not fit their needs. I'm going to tell them. So, I mean, we're importing a lot of the stuff. Like, I'm using American headsets. Like, we're getting parts locally fabricated, rear racks and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But a lot of the bikes are, I mean, the motors and the batteries right now, I mean, the only place you can get them is the best companies right now are in China, and we're using a lot of stuff with the Bafang motors and batteries.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
lithium batteries are coming from over there. So, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can say they're kind of assembled here or whatever, but it is what it is. If we could buy up
It is
everything
what it
here,
is.
we would. But because there's one company, it kind of drives me crazy. They keep saying that they're assembled or what, and I know it's kind of dishonest to say it's American made, but I mean, we do what we can,
You do, yeah.
and we
You do
just
it. You do what you can. For the
we
most
try to.
part, it's it's made in America. There are parts that are American made, and yes, I know the batteries. At the end of the day, that's where we're getting it from. Is it's China, and I agree. I would love to be able to get it here. But that's not the case. But still, and love the honesty too as well. Um, you know, when you're looking at this, and you're somebody who's new and you're looking at all different types of options, you got the switchback, you got the bow hunter, obviously derailleur bikes, you know, what are you really like if someone is looking for something, I guess simple, I bow hunt, I'm a bow hunter, so 98% of the hunting I'm doing is bow hunting. What is your recommendation for somebody that's looking at your website and looking for, something to get to start themselves off at?
So with our minimum performance standard, like, guys can't go wrong with any of our bikes. So if I look at the bow hunter to the switchback, if I made like a car comparison, it'd be like your Chevy Tahoe to the Escalade. So there's a lot of similarities between the two bikes. The bow hunter, we wanted to keep a one of our bikes as affordable as we could. Unfortunately, they're still expensive, but
Mm-hmm.
our bow hunter ST, which is a step through bike, it's packed with features. It's our most affordable bike. It's a little bit less than the other ones because it has a 15 amp hour battery. So a little bit smaller battery. It still has 4-piston brakes, which you're going to want hydraulic brakes, and 4-piston are the best. It still has a good front suspension, but some of the other bikes have a better front suspension. We integrated the rear rack into the frame to give it strength. We have specific trailer attachment points for basically every trailer. And we were able to do a lot of those things with that bike because I actually designed that frame from the ground up where,
Wow.
you know, uh, I knew I needed this, and this. So we looked at what hunters were asking from us, which was the step through frames, just because guys with bibs, boots, and whatever else don't want to have to swing their leg entirely over the bike. So step through frames. They wanted all the trailer attachment points. They wanted a stronger rear rack. We're putting the higher quality brakes on them. So we packed a lot of features into that bike, and that's our most affordable bike. And then the other version of that bike has a bigger battery. So it's actually a 52 volt system compared to a 48 volt system, which is a little bit more power and then a bigger battery. So those two bikes are kind of, well, I won't even say entry level, but those are our value packed bikes
Okay.
that are extremely popular right now. And then the switch pack is where you're going to get those high end features where if you're looking to get the Bafang automatic 5-speed hub, or if you're looking to
Mm-hmm.
get the roll off hub, which is a 14-speed internally geared hub, those bikes are available with those features. So if you're looking for the real high end bike features, then that's where the switchback is with some of those smaller details. But for anybody, if they bought the bow hunter, they'd be extremely happy with it, and it's going to perform side by side with the Switchback. The Switchback just has some small little details, and then it has the ability to upgrade to even, higher end stuff, where when you start
Mhm.
adding the Bafang 5-speed hub and the roll-off 14-speed hub, those are equivalent to, the top of the line bike from Baku or the top of the line bike from Quiet Cat, where those are just the real high end stuff, where you're going to get the single speed simplicity, but you're not sacrificing top end speed, where those bikes will still go 30 miles per hour compared to our single speeds only go 14, 16 miles per hour.
Okay.
But to be honest, if you're going through fields or the woods or most hunting situations, you're not going to need to go faster. The only time
Mhm.
you'll miss it is if you're just driving down the road, or if you want to use the bike for a bunch of different things, where you're going to use it riding with the family or maybe commuting, maybe a roll-off hub makes sense for you. But our single speeds are our most popular bikes right now.
And that kind of gives you, I like how you said like do stuff riding on with the family or something like that. So it kind of gives you best of both worlds where it's like, okay, if you live, maybe not too far away from your work, you could take that to work, or you can go on a, you and the family can go out. And so it gives like a whole different option too, where I kind of like that. Like I mean, I could do that probably with the 15 and 18, go to the store real quick or something like that. But, you know, it does give that extra option where you can do a lot more with it than just hunting as well.
Because the single speeds are more of a throttle only application, where if you think of your standard mountain bike and you put it in the gear you would use to climb a hill, that's the
Hmm.
only gear that bike has. So if you all of a sudden take that bike and put it on flat ground and you're going 15 miles an hour, you're not going to be able to keep up with the pedals. So if you're doing a lot of pedal assist or want to get exercise for the bike, then you're going to want, we sell bikes with derailleurs. If people want bike with a derailleur, we have no problem selling it to them. We've just probably 99% of the bikes we've sold have been the single speed bikes. But if you're going to, like you said, use the bike for a whole bunch of different things, then you might want a derailleur. Or if you have the money for the investment into the
Hmm.
14 speed hub, I mean, that thing is absolutely amazing, where you have the gearing equivalent to like a 12-speed derailleur with that many different gear selections, and it's all internally housed in the hub, and it's basically bathed in oil, to where you change the oil on
Hmm.
the rear hub, where all the parts are being lubricated by the oil, and all the gearing's inside the hub. So it's amazing technology. It's just more expensive, and if you wanted a derailleur, then we have no problem building bikes exactly how the consumer wants them. And that's kind of how we started. Was our original name was Stealth Custom E-Bikes, because it was,
Hmm.
basically, you tell us what you want and we'll build it. And then we kind of learned the features that everybody was asking for, and just kind of put those into packages, and that made it easier for us to kind of keep parts in stock, and then less confusion. I mean, because you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
100 choices on a website, then it just, people get more confused. So
Yeah.
it's easier to put thing in packages. And if people want something a little bit different, where if they want the throttle on this side or that side, or a twist versus a thumb throttle, we can build the bike exactly how you want, because we're actually putting our hands on it. And with that being said, I think one of the most popular features is the puncture resistant package, where we put Tannis liners and flat out in the tires. And I don't, there's very few companies that actually do that, just because you have to physically take the tires apart and put them back on the bike. But it really doesn't make that big a difference for us. So instead of you buying a bike and then having to take it apart and do a bunch of stuff to get it to the road, we're selling them pretty much where they're out of the box. You have a few things to assemble, where when you get a bike, it's in a box, the front tire's off, and then the handlebars are off. So basically you have to attach the handlebars, put the front tire on, then you have some racks and fenders and pedals, and other than that,
Mhm.
it's ready to go.
Now that's incredible. And you talk about the tires, and that was tires and batteries were another worry and concern. And when you're going through like that, and I know the bigger tires usually, you say the better and everything like that, but you're kind of making it so this is kind of, you never know what you're going through. When we're in hunting situations, you, at the end of the day, I don't care who you are, whatever the case is, like, you just never know. So you're basically making it so the tires are less likely to puncture. Obviously, there's still a chance. It doesn't mean you can drive through, ride through a bunch of nails and everything like that. But you're going through cornfields. You're going to be going through, whatever you're going to be going to. There's things that, fallen limbs, branches, everything like that could potentially pop your tire. And this is, just that extra comfort as well.
Definitely. I mean, it must be like 99.9% of the bikes that we sell, guys get the Tannis liners, and the Tannis liner is basically it's probably like a 1/2 inch a foam liner. So you have the tire, then you have a 1/2 inch of foam, then you have the inner
Mm-hmm.
tube, and then you also put a sealant in the inner tube where, in case something came through the foam, punctured
Yep.
the inner tube, that it's still going to seal itself. And worst case scenario, if you had a total inner tube failure, there's enough foam in the tire where you'd be able to ride the bike with a flat tire and not damage the rim.
Okay.
So we know that, people are going to go hunting and they can't afford to get stranded 2 hours
No,
from their truck.
definitely not.
So I think some of the early on problems where people were calling us, say, hey, this is the problem I always have, were guys going out east or out west with goat heads, it's like a small thorn type thing.
Yep.
And then the other one was locust pods, where locust trees have those huge thorns on them. So in both situations, people who normally would have multiple inner tube failures were using our bikes with the Tannis and the flat out and could go through the entire season without a problem. So
Wow.
I can't think of a phone call that I've had where someone's saying, hey, this isn't working, we got to try something else. So for the most part, I don't think when you use those two items, they're probably they're the most effective by far. Like if you do any amount of research, the Tannis gives you a couple different, it improves the ride because you have additional foam in the tire. And then it gives you the protection from any type of puncture through the tire itself. And then the flat out is a Kevlar sealant. We've all used the slimes and different things, and the flat out's by far the most effective with sealing if you do have an issue.
Now, it's put right before I left. I've never had this happen, but I was actually walking through the woods and something went right through the sole of my boot and right into my foot. It's never happened before, but it's, you always, like, now thinking about it, it's like you always want that extra protection. And that's something, even if I wasn't, even if I knew I was, taking my e-bike out on, gravel, dirt road, or maybe the most like a cornfield, right? And I just had to travel a good distance where I couldn't walk, I would still, those tires, you just never know. You always want to be safe. And that's kind of like, I have, my truck has the Kevlar tires, it's just in case. And it's helped. I mean, I ran over a screw when I first got them, and it actually didn't really do much to the tire, and actually kind of bent the screw and everything like that. But it's something that, rather be safe than then sorry. And that bending the rim, I know that's always, from driving cars to bikes, that's always like a huge concern when you get flat tires and everything like that. So that is a really good assuring thing to hear. And the batteries, that's always another thing. What does battery life look like? You got different models, everything like that. And like you said, with the bow hunter, you got a 48-volt versus a 52-volt. you know um what is that gonna what are the effects on the battery? How much drive time do you usually have? And what does that look like also during the winter? That's always my biggest question, is during the winter, once it starts getting colder and colder, what's the battery life look like in that?
So I always laugh at the battery, and I don't understand this because there's one of our competitors has the exact same motor, exact same battery as one of our bikes, and they advertise 90-mile range, which is insane. And so I don't know why companies advertise like a basically a pedal assist range, where
Mhm.
if you want to help the motor out and do 90% of the work, yeah, you can maybe get 90 miles. I mean, you could take a bicycle without a motor and say it has a 100-mile range if you want to pedal it for 100 miles. So
Yeah.
when I look at a battery, I rate it throttle only with hills, kind of
Okay.
real world situation. So if you look at any 1,000-watt motor with a battery, if you have a 15 amp hour battery, that's roughly 15-mile range. So you could get on the low end 10, you could get on the high end 20. So it's kind of, 5 miles either way of what the amp hour rating is. So 30 amp hour battery, roughly about 30-mile range. 25 at the lowest, 35 or more maybe on the high end. And that depends on the weight of the rider, the tire inflation, like you said, temperature. Temperature is going to suck some out of the
Yeah.
battery. I haven't seen it where it's too terrible. Like I've used them in, you know, single digits. The hardest thing on the battery is you're not going to want it to freeze. Like if you kept the battery in your house and then went out in the morning, then that battery's going to perform pretty good compared to if you let it sit outside in the
Mm.
cold. It's similar to,
Okay.
like, I think a lot of us, if you remember this last winter where we had that real cold stretch where some of the electric cars weren't starting.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, the batteries don't like when it's super cold, but there's things you can do to mitigate that, where if you bring the battery in at night, or if put a jacket on the battery when you're parked at your tree stand during the day, that's gonna hold some of that heat that the battery kind of was emitting while it was
Mm.
working, and then that's going to give you better performance. But overall, you can look at you know a mile per amp hour for the range.
That's pretty smart. I like the jacket idea. That's pretty unique. And yet again, is that something that you did, or one of your customers tried doing, and brought that to your attention?
There's some, like, we were kind of working on designing uh like something that would zip onto the frame and kind of cover the battery. There's a couple different companies that have it where you can cover the battery, or if, like I said, you could just use a coat or something when you got where you're going, where you're just trying to maintain some of that heat on that
Hmm.
battery while you're sitting in your tree. But we haven't had, you know, usually at some point, especially up here where I'm at, the snow gets too deep where the bikes are tough to operate. But for
Yeah.
cold weather, they seem to work as long as you're doing some things with bringing the battery in. And the worst thing for a battery is to totally drain it and then let it freeze. That can cause problems. But the batteries are, we're using high quality batteries that are, they should have a lifetime range of probably 20,000 miles. So
Mhm.
the battery is probably not going to be the weak spot on the bike. And
Okay.
if I think we've only had one or two situations where it wasn't looking like the battery was performing the way it should be, and we just sent the person a new battery. And we're not
Okay.
gonna haggle
Got
and
yeah.
ask you to do all kinds of things. If your battery's not working, then here's
Gotcha.
a new
No,
one.
that and yet again another customer service, because you're not going to get a lot of companies that do that. um and the charge time. So when you charge it, you said don't let it die and then leave it sitting outside, and let it get cold. So bring it inside, charge it right away. What are we looking at for a charge time?
So you can charge the battery at any time. So if you took the bike, drove it for a mile, it's not bad for it to throw it on the charger and get it
Okay.
fully charged. So I think they're rated for like 10,000 full cycles, which is fully powered up, fully drained. So that could happen a bunch. So you could charge the battery 3 times in between there, and it's fully charged to a full drain would be one cycle. So you can charge it anytime. They come with smart chargers where the charger is going to shut off when the battery's charged. Recommend that you don't leave the battery on the charger for extended periods of time. You're just, there's always it's a battery that's housing a lot of power, and once it's charged, take it off the charger. The chargers are rated similarly, where if you have a 5 amp charger, it charges 5 amps per hour. So let's just say you had a 20 amp hour battery. It would take a 5 amp charger 4 hours to charge that battery. So our bigger batteries are going to have 5 amp chargers.
Hmm.
So our bigger 30 amp battery, it would take 6 hours if it was completely drained, which would be unlikely it'd be that low. And then our 15 amp hour batteries come with a 2 amp charger, because you don't want to have too big a charger for the battery, because then
Hmm.
you're inputting too much energy to where you can have problems. But we use high quality batteries with good battery management systems. Like if you're building your own mid-drive e-bike, you have the motors and then you have the batteries, and you can have two identical looking batteries, and one's $400 and one's $800. Well, the one thing you don't want to skimp on is the battery, because the $800 battery is going to have a better battery management system. It's probably going to have better welds. It's going to have better cells. And, that's an important component on the bike where, if you're building your own, don't skimp on the battery. We use high quality batteries, and basically understanding that the battery obviously powers the bike, but it's also a safety feature on the bike, where most of the problems with e-bikes being fire hazards and there being problems, a lot of those are either DIY batteries where you could actually do all the welding and design and make a battery all by yourself, or they're cheap batteries with cheap battery management systems, and
Yeah.
combined with a cheap charger, and you can have problems.
Okay. Gotcha. Um, you know, well, I want to real quick move and talk a little bit more about yourself and your hunting and everything like that. You grew up in Michigan, or you guys are based in Michigan?
We're based in Michigan, so I grew up in Wisconsin, live in Michigan now. So I'll usually hunt 2 to 3 states a year. I try to
Okay.
get somewhere in September, and then I'll hunt Wisconsin, Michigan, and then if I have time, maybe something else. But so that's where my passion is. Like my passion was never, oh, I'm going to start a business. I want to sell bikes. Mine was, I I'm a hardcore hunter. I needed a tool to help me get the job done. And that's where this whole business started. Was just it was actually a trip to Nebraska, where we were there early season, and there's a lot of pressure with out of state guys and stuff like that. But
Of course,
it's
yeah.
big country, to where if you had the ability to get a little bit further away than everybody else, then you'd be in uncharted territory, so to speak. So that got me thinking, where how can I use the bikes to kind of change the angles that I was accessing property. So a lot of the times right now, I'll actually park my truck and then drive the bike even down the road a couple miles, and then I hunt mostly public land, but access the public land, off the roadway more than from the parking lots and trailheads. And I've never ever seen anybody walk down the road and then access. So it kind of opened up a whole different world of, you're going after the deer from different angles where they're not used to being targeted from. And then you're able to get to areas that other people aren't necessarily going to. Because most guys who are going to, you always hear guys talk about walking 1, 2, 3 miles. They're probably not going to walk 1, 2, 3 miles parallel to the roadway. They're probably going to try to get into the middle where they think nobody else is going to
Yeah.
be. So you're able to access different areas, and then, hide your vehicle to where, like, if you're parked in the same spot 2 days in a row, people are going to start noticing. So I'll strategically park my vehicle here or there to hide where I'm at, where nobody really knows where I'm at. I don't have to worry as much about people walking in on me, and that's kind of opened up different worlds, basically, to where once you get the bike, it kind of gives you a completely different playbook, where, if you're just walking to spots, you had this many plays, where all of a sudden you have this bike, and you have way more options for what you can do and how you can access different parts of properties. And depending on the state, some states are e-bike friendly, some are more restrictive, but
Mhm.
either way, even in the most restrictive states, you can just drive down the road and then jump in from a different angle than everybody else. And, I've found that to be a huge advantage.
Yeah, I agree, and I've taken that tactic as well. But yet again, I'm limited because I can only really park in certain areas. Still, I will try to go where other hunters don't think to go. I hunt a lot of public, and obviously it's a lot of it's landlocked, so a couple of the spots that I hunt, like, I have to park on a side street, then walk across, but I'm still parking kind of in that area. So I've noticed people have picked up on it, where I've never had people walking into certain of these areas and scouting certain or hunting certain areas. And now all of a sudden, every once in a while I'll get somebody who, probably has noticed my truck being there, multiple times. I'm like, okay, he's got to be, this is most likely a hunter. I know that right over there. You can hunt over there. He's probably somewhere in there, where, if you get an e-bike and, I'm looking at it, it's like, all right, now it gives you so much more access to, you're going parallel, like you said, 2 to 3 miles, and then you're cutting in, and it's just, it completely, it's, you're hitting the deer from, like you said, a different angle, and somewhere where they're not expecting it. Hunters are not expecting, they don't really have any sign that you're there, because you're taking the e-bike in and everything like that. So on all around, like, just a phenomenal idea as well, where you're right, you're not getting too, actually, I really, again, I don't know anyone who would walk 2 to 3 miles
Down the
and
road.
then cut in and then go, however many more. I always feel strange just walking, 500-600 yards, 700 yards on a main road with my hunting gear. Like, I couldn't imagine walking 2 to 3 miles, and just like the amount of stairs and everything like you would get, while people drive by. But it's a phenomenal way to access, and that's one of the biggest, I think the most important things to hunting is access. And it's always going to be, access. Obviously, you have to access a spot before you can worry about the wind and all the other factors. But especially
Because
when you're hunting your
with the
turkey.
bike, you can look for areas with the worst access.
Yeah.
So you can, like, when I hunted Kentucky, like, just because it's like steep ravines and everything, there's a lot of guardrails. So
Hmm.
guardrails are awesome because there's no place to park. So you just find whatever the nearest parking spot is, and
Yep.
it's way. I always felt that, if you're parked close to where you're hunting, you always felt like you're in a rush, like you're trying to get from your truck to the woods so that no one would see you
Yep.
or wouldn't see where you walked in. So if you park away from your spots, it's just so much more relaxing. Get your gear on, hop on the bike, buzz down the road. You have way less worries about people figuring out what you're doing, and it's just it's a huge advantage to where you can look at a map and see where the closest parking spots are, and if you can find sparks or spots with no parking, you're gonna probably have very little pressure. So you're gonna open up. Those are the other parts of the playbook I'm talking about, where even like expressways or whatever, where you can't park your truck, or
Hmm.
guardrails, or any of those spots. You know, small spots. Like if you have, there's some 15-acre spots that are unbelievable, but if you park there more than one day, like people are going to walk in and start checking it out. But if nobody has any idea you're back there, then you're way more likely to keep your so-called secret spot secret if people
Exactly.
have no idea that anybody's hunting back there.
Yeah, no, I agree. It opens up, like, my mind. I'm just, every time, this is why I love doing this podcast and just talking to all different people, because now everything just starts turning in the head and all these ideas, and you start to brainstorm. Um it's just, I will be excited when I get my first e-bike. I got to talk to the fiance. We were planning a wedding, so I don't know if I'll be able to pull that one out for
Put it on
this year.
your what's the where you do
The
the gift
the
gift
the
list or
Yeah,
whatever?
yep. That's the big plan. That is the big plan. But hunting. So you hunted in Wisconsin. You grew up in Wisconsin. Now you're in Michigan. You still, you love to hunt. How do you find that balance? Of hunting, but also working on the e-bikes and everything like that, and running a business,
Yeah,
and family time,
I do the bikes on the side, so this is like my side hustle. But I'm actually a Michigan State Trooper, so
Oh,
that's
okay.
my full-time job. Before that, I actually hunted out east quite a bit. I was a professional hockey player for 10 years. So I was
Oh,
mostly in the
wow.
minor leagues, but I played in Bridgeport, Connecticut,
Oh, okay.
Springfield, Massachusetts, Binghamton, New York,
Okay. So you played in the
Maine.
AHL?
Yep, I was in the AHL.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I grew up playing hockey. A bunch of, actually, Anthony Stolars that just won the cup for Florida. We played together. I played with Johnny Gaudreau, Kyle
Cool.
Palmer, all the Jersey guys. I played in the EJHL and on the East over here and everything like that. So big connections in
Nice.
hockey, and was on that path too. But it's a grind. It's an absolute grind. But I do miss it, but I think I love hunting just a little bit more.
Oh yeah. That was when I finally retired. It was like, oh yeah, I finally get to hunt the rut. But even when I was playing, so I remember in Connecticut, I think I shot like 7 deer that year, because I think you could shoot like $3 and all kinds
Yeah.
of doe tags. But so we'd practice in the morning, and you'd be
Hmm.
done by 1 o'clock or so. So almost every day when we didn't have a game that night, I was hunting. So hunted a lot out east. Kind of got to learn a lot of different terrains and strategies, and
Yeah.
so I've kind of been forced to be a public land guy from early on, and forced to be as mobile as possible, just because I was probably only going to be in a place for the 1 year. It wasn't going to be year to year, and I
Yeah.
couldn't leave stands up and stuff like that. So that kind of shaped my hunting. And now it's, with work as a state trooper and then the bikes, I burn my vacation in the fall, and work's good to where I can take quite a bit of time off. So
Yeah.
I'll usually go someplace in September and then hunt Wisconsin and Michigan for sure, 2 states. But I love those September. Have you ever done a
No,
velvet hunt?
it's on the bucket. I was actually the fiance and I, we were watching, man, I can't remember. I think we were watching Midwest Whitetails last night. And the girl, it was her first buck, or her first deer, first buck, first bow deer, and it turned out to be a velvet buck. And she was like, "Oh," she was like, "Oh my god, that's so cool!" And I was like, "That's the goal right there. Like that's on the bucket list, is to do a velvet hunt, for sure." So I definitely want a velvet buck.
It's just that time of year. It feels like you're getting a bonus hunt because it's like the last thing in your mind. Because in Michigan we open up October 1st, so all of a sudden September sneaks up on you. It's like, holy cow, I get to go hunt next week, and then you go do your hunt, and then there's another gap of time where you can actually your season starts. So it just feels
Yeah,
like a bonus. It's kind of
yeah,
for the most part, it's a comfortable time of year. It's not cold. It's usually hotter than you'd like it, but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
fun, definitely, just try to extend the season. And I'm starting to look into, what places can I go in December or January, when you start thinking like Alabama and those different seasons. Because a lot of times, like our rut gets done here, and then it's like, oh, the season's over, and then you forget that the rut hasn't even started down in Alabama. And that was the
yeah,
one thing
yeah,
I
yeah,
noticed with bike sales, was I tried to build inventory coming into the season, kind of thinking that I'd sell a lot in like September and October, which was true. But then all of a sudden, I was selling almost just as many bikes in December, and it's like kind of caught me off guard. Well, it's like, these people are still hunting. You know,
yeah.
they their ruts in December, they're still getting after it. So started make me think, well, that'd kind of be cool to leave 4 feet of snow up here and go down for a rut hunt down south. It sounds like a pretty good idea to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like we're fortunate here. We start the second week of September and we actually go to the middle of February. We have a very long hunting season over here. But I would eventually like to go, like you said, during that December time, when it's when it's getting cold up here, or you're starting to get the snow and everything like that. For you it's even worse, in Michigan,
Yeah.
but to move more of that down south, because you kind of get that, you get to hit that other rut, their rut, so it's another popular time. And it's another thing, like, you have to worry about, everyone always forgets down south, like, they're behind everyone in the north and in the Midwest and everything like that. So, for if you're a business and you have to prepare for that September, October, and then you have to prepare, yet again for that, I guess, December, maybe January time frame, when you're getting another whole, peak of hunting for a whole nother area. So it's that's quite interesting, for sure. I didn't even think about that at all, like, and you just leave it off the, it's never on, I guess, the top of your head, because by the time for us, like, it's like, all right, like, we're winding down, like, waterfowl's usually hitting off, you start predator season coming, trapping season, you're doing all these other things. But if you just go down south, you could be back in the swing of things. Or you can even go, when does Kentucky, I think, starts the end of August or the first week of September, I believe.
Yeah,
I
it's right
can't remember.
beginning, somewhere in the beginning. Like I think there's only like 4 velvet states,
Yeah,
which
yeah, there's not many.
I think it's like Kentucky, North Dakota, Nebraska. I don't know if Tennessee had something going. I don't know if they're still doing that, but it's it's a cool hunt. Like some people like the idea of velvet, some people don't. For me, it's just a bonus time of
Yeah,
year where
yeah.
you're like getting getting to do something you normally wouldn't be able to do. So it's just kind of a gift.
Yeah, no, it is. I definitely agree, and I understand. Like I said, I'm blessed with how much time we get to hunt over here, but I'm still looking for, hey, why can I start hunting earlier? And it's like, you can go do a velvet hunt. And I think Maine, their bear season starts the day after um, Labor Day. I think it's the Monday after Labor Day or Labor Day, whenever Labor Day is going to be on. I think they start that first week of September. So it's like, all right, like, how do I plan this where I go to another state, hunt there, then come home? Our weekend, our opener will be like the next like week or two. Then you can go to, I think, PA or upstate New York starts like, I think, a week after ours, and those states all open up like one after the other, and then it's like boom, you're in the full swing and everything like that. So it's definitely a fun time. But so we're a few more questions, and I always ask this one to all the new people that we get on the show. You had 2 weeks for a dream hunt. Where would it be, all paid for, 2 weeks? What's the animal, and where would you hunt?
I think I'm obsessed with whitetails right now. Like we started putting in for elk points, stuff like that, but I think I'll be able to draw Iowa next year. So I think that for me right now, that's probably going to be my dream hunt. Go down to, for whatever reason, I like to beat my head against the wall and hunt public land. So probably go to Iowa, hunt public, and see if I can get it done. I guess I like to fail my own way than kind of somebody put me in a tree and I just
Yeah, yeah,
become a trigger man. So that's what I I don't mind failure, I guess. Like I don't need a
yeah.
guarantee, so I'll go, give it a go and try to make it happen. If it happens, awesome. If it doesn't, I'll learn from it and go from there. But that probably
I think,
right now that's my dream hunt. Go to Iowa, see if I can get on something really big. I think
yeah,
the goal for every whitetail guy is
yeah,
get
yeah,
somewhere in that 200 range. I'd be happy, 180, but
yeah.
we'll see.
I I just started my points for Iowa as well, but I think that mentality too comes from being a hockey player. I think, you look at, what we do, and it's like, you have to be okay with failure, because it's the only way that and it should be really with anyone with life, but I think with hockey, you just, it's such a grind. Look at all the games that you're playing in the season. You can't get hung up on, a loss or a bad shift or a bad game. You kind of just got to keep on going, and look at how many people actually first make it to the NHL, and then two, win win the Stanley Cup. You look at some of the greats in the world, and they've still never done it. But I think hockey is playing at the level that I played at has helped me so much be the hunter I am today, just through a mentality standpoint. And you could probably say that about like playing any sports, team sports that are such a high professional level. But I definitely mark it down to hockey has gotten me to where I am now.
Yeah, definitely. I was a goalie, so I was only
Oh, really?
one shot away from failure. So
Oh man, you
teaches you
you you had it
mental
hard.
toughness, and I think, like you said, with hunting, I mean, it's just most athletes, I think, with that mentality can grind with the best of them to where you're not going to get beat down. You know that I always the one saying I always tell my brother is I'm moment away from greatness. Like you could have your whole season could be total garbage, and then like in a split second, it could all
Yeah,
change. And if during that split second you're at home on the couch compared to in the tree, things are totally different. So you got to sometimes you just have to be willing to put the time in and give yourself a chance and hope for the best. And if it doesn't work out, then just learn from your decisions and get better in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree. Um, if you could, are you a snacker in the woods? Are you a big snack guy?
I like my snacks. Yeah.
What's your go-to hunting snack?
Go-to hunting snack is Oreo
Ooh,
cookies. I like
love it.
the yellow ones. What are those? The
The
golden Oreos.
the gold,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
usually
the
have a
golden oat.
Ziploc bag of those with
Ah,
me in the
love it,
tree.
love it. Typical or non-typical whitetail?
I like non-typical. I like the trash.
Um, what's your if you could only hunt 1 week of the year? What dates would you pick?
The week before Halloween, just because I think I don't know if it's the best week, but as a public land guy, the pressure picks up on Halloween. So
Yeah,
the week before, little fewer guys, maybe you can get one cruising, but that's kind of, I guess, why I picked that week.
yeah. Um, if you if you could work with one company, if you can have Face Off be work with one company, what would it be?
Funny you should ask. But I guess so. I've worked with Lone Wolf Custom Gear, and we actually partnered with them to build a bike for them. So that'll
Oh
be
wow,
coming out later this summer. Hope maybe in the next couple weeks. We have bikes painted and ready to go. Andre's designing the rear rack where all the stands will lock into the rear rack. So the
yeah.
stands and sticks will all lock into the rack on
Oh
the bike, and
wow.
then it'll have bow holders. So we're really excited about that. So I mean, that was kind of like that as a company coming up to be able to partner with, one of the bigger names in the hunting industry, probably the biggest name in mobile hunting, but to partner with them, to work with them is exciting for us. So I guess the dream has somewhat come true with that.
That's
Looking
cool.
forward to that.
I think I definitely already know a couple of guys who are big lone wolf guys that I would love to invest in to invest in that. Um, where do you see yourself in the company in 5 years?
Just continuing to exceed expectation. That's always been our goal, is where somebody gets a bike from us, that it meets and exceeds what they expected from the bike. A lot of times, you'll see where somebody will buy something that are disappointed. So as long as we're exceeding expectations, I don't
Hmm.
care how many bikes we sell. We'll just keep trucking along and designing them and building them to do what, because we've kind of focused on a really small part of the marketplace,
Yeah,
which is why I think our bikes are unique, because we're not marketing to a large group to where, you know, the overall e-bike market is interested in top end speed. They're interested in different things that aren't really priorities for hunters, where, with the popularity of our single speed bikes, it goes completely against what other companies think people want. And that's just because we're looking at a real
yeah.
minute part of the marketplace, and that's who we're building bikes for.
Yeah. And last one here for you. If you couldn't go on a hunt with one person, dead or alive, family, friends, someone who's famous, who would you like to hunt with?
uh I mean, that's kind of a low. I'd just pick my dad, just because I mean, he's in his 70s now.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows how many more
Yeah, yeah,
seasons he has left. So just for me right now is to take advantage of that time, and the more time I can spend with him in the woods, the better, and enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, I would definitely love to thank you for coming on. I mean, this has been absolutely incredible. You know, the e-bike game is just grown so much, and you know, when the time comes, I am going to be very excited to get mine. You know, I think you hit the nail on the coffin here, and I'm gonna be I'm gonna be putting this in the wish list for the wedding. I might have to sneak it in there, but you know, I definitely plan on getting a bike from you guys. You know, at some point. But I mean, just a phenomenal episode. Anyone who's looking out there or who's got any questions, you know, definitely feel free. Make sure you know you give them a follow and you give a quick DM and everything like that. And you know, any last words from you?
No, yeah, just get us on that gift registry and see if anybody gets you a bike. But yeah, follow us on. We post. Our company was basically built on Facebook, so Face Off eBikes on Facebook. We post a couple times a week. You'll get some information. Post videos of what the bikes are capable of. Our website, faceoffebikes.com, and then on Instagram, it's Face Off eBikes. So follow us on any of those things. Feel free to call us. We probably talk to the vast majority of our customers just to make sure that they get exactly what they need to fit their hunting style and what they want the bike to do. So yeah, definitely follow us and feel free to give us a call if you have any questions.
The link, I will post the links down in the description below. Everyone, I hope you guys enjoy this episode, and we'll see you guys next time.